A car you can refuel in 5 minutes that emits only water. It sounds like science fiction.
But it's not. It's real, and it's on the road today. The question is, why isn't it in your driveway?
Welcome to Auto Intelligence, the podcast that fuels your thinking about the future of mobility. I'm Steve, and with me is Claire, both part of the Auto Agentic team.
Whether you're sipping your morning brew or catching up later, we've got your industry insights covered. New episodes drop every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
We're genuinely grateful for our growing audience of forward-thinking professionals and mobility enthusiasts. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating paradoxes in clean transportation.
Auto Intelligence is produced by Auto Agentic AI, and today we're tackling hydrogen vehicles, the technology that promises everything but delivers. Well, we'll get to that.
Claire, let's start with the dream. Paint me the picture of what hydrogen evangelists see when they close their eyes.
Picture this, Steve. You pull into a station, and in 5 minutes, not 30, not an hour, you're back on the road with a full tank.
Your car produces zero emissions, just water vapor. No range anxiety for long trips. No waiting around for charging.
It's the best of both worlds, the convenience of gasoline with the environmental benefits of electric. And the energy density is incredible.
Hydrogen packs more energy per kilogram than any battery we've got today. For heavy-duty trucking, that's a game changer.
You can haul serious weight without sacrificing cargo space to massive battery packs. And here's where it gets really interesting from a systems perspective.
Hydrogen can be produced anywhere you have water and electricity. Rural communities, industrial sites, even ships at sea.
It's potentially the most democratized fuel source we've ever had, so why aren't we all driving these miracle machines?
Because here's where the dream meets some pretty harsh realities. Claire, let's talk numbers. How many hydrogen vehicles were actually sold globally in the first half of 2024?
Brace yourself. 5,621? That's it. Compare that to 4.5 million battery electric vehicles in the same period.
We're not talking about a close race here. And in the United States, where hydrogen deployment is supposedly most advanced, we've got about 18,000 hydrogen cars on the road.
All of them, and I mean all of them, are in California. First quarter 2024 sales dropped 70% year over year.
The Toyota Mirai, which is the most popular hydrogen car in America, saw sales drop 74% to just 172 units.
The Hyundai Nexo, 51 vehicles. 51. Those aren't market penetration numbers. Those are rounding errors.
And there's a reason for this. As one industry analysis put it, the FCV segment faces limited car availability, high hydrogen prices, and inadequate charging infrastructure.
But that's just the beginning of the challenges. Let's talk about the infrastructure bottleneck, because this is where the chicken and egg problem becomes really apparent.
How many hydrogen refueling stations do we have in the United States? 59 total, across the entire country.
And remember, we've got over 2 million electric vehicle charging points. The contrast is stark, and building these stations isn't cheap.
Construction costs in California range from $1.5 to $2 million per station. The more complex configurations can hit $3.2 million.
That's not exactly a quick return on investment when you're serving dozens of cars instead of thousands. Here's what really gets me about the infrastructure challenge.
It's not just about the money, though. That's obviously huge. It's about the coordination required. You need hydrogen production, transportation, storage, and dispensing all working together.
One weak link and the whole system fails, and we're seeing that play out in real time. In 2024, the US added 9 new stations but decommissioned 12.
That's a net loss. Imagine if we were losing electric charging stations faster than we were building them. The economics are brutal.
At California, dispensers hydrogen costs $13 to $15 per kilogram. On an energy equivalent basis, that's significantly more expensive than gasoline.
So you're asking consumers to pay more for less convenience. But here's where the story gets interesting.
Because while the passenger car market is struggling, there are some bright spots emerging, and they're not where most people are looking.
You're talking about heavy-duty applications. Volvo announced they'll begin customer tests with hydrogen-powered trucks in 2026.
DHL and Diageo North America have deployed Nikola hydrogen trucks that are expected to reduce emissions by 80% compared to diesel.
The hydrogen truck market is projected to reach $10 billion by 2030. And that makes sense when you think about it.
Fleet operators have different economics than individual consumers. They can build dedicated refueling infrastructure. They have predictable routes.
They can absorb higher upfront costs if the total cost of ownership works out. Plus, for long-haul trucking, hydrogen's advantages really shine.
You can refuel quickly, you don't lose cargo space to batteries, and you can maintain the operational patterns that truckers are used to.
It's not asking them to completely reimagine how they work, but even in commercial applications, we're still dealing with fundamental cost and efficiency challenges.
And this is where the technology development becomes crucial. What's happening in the labs and manufacturing facilities that might change the game?
Some genuinely exciting developments, Claire. Hyundai is ramping up to mass-produce 100,000 fuel cells annually by 2025.
Honda's next-generation fuel cell module, coming in 2027, will halve production costs while doubling durability and tripling volumetric power density.
Those are the kinds of improvements that could shift the economics. But we've been hearing about breakthrough technologies for years. What makes these different?
Scale and partnerships. Toyota and BMW are collaborating on a third-generation fuel cell system. BMW's planning their first mass-produced fuel cell vehicle in 2028.
When major automakers are making these kinds of commitments, it suggests they see a viable path forward. And there's some fascinating materials science happening.
Norwegian researchers at Sintef have figured out how to reduce platinum content in fuel cells by more than 62%, while cutting membrane thickness by 33%.
That's a 20% cost reduction right there. Platinum has always been the expensive elephant in the room for fuel cells.
Any breakthrough that reduces dependence on precious metals is huge for scalability. But let's be honest about the efficiency question.
Because this is where hydrogen faces its biggest technical challenge. Walk me through the energy efficiency comparison.
This is where things get uncomfortable for hydrogen advocates. Battery electric vehicles use over 85% of input energy to power the wheels.
Hydrogen vehicles achieve only 30 to 40% efficiency when you account for production, transport, storage, and conversion back to electricity.
That's a massive difference. And it's not just about efficiency, it's about cost. Every step in that hydrogen chain adds expense.
You need energy to produce the hydrogen, energy to compress it, energy to transport it, and then you lose energy converting it back to electricity in the fuel cell.
But here's where the conversation gets more nuanced. Efficiency matters, but it's not the only factor.
If you can produce hydrogen using excess renewable energy that would otherwise be wasted, suddenly that efficiency calculation looks different.
That's a fair point, and there are applications where hydrogen's advantages might outweigh the efficiency penalty, but we need to be realistic about where those applications are.
Speaking of being realistic, let's talk about production costs, because this is where the rubber meets the road for hydrogen's future.
Green hydrogen, the kind produced using renewable energy, currently costs $3 to $8 per kilogram. Grey hydrogen, made from natural gas, costs $1 to $2 per kilogram.
The Department of Energy's Hydrogen Shot program aims to get clean hydrogen down to $1 per kilogram by 2031.
And there's reason for optimism on that front. Research from RMI suggests that a 50 to 70% cost reduction is achievable by 2026 to 2030.
Through economies of scale, system design improvements, and manufacturing optimization. The key phrase there is economies of scale.
Which brings us back to the chicken and egg problem. You need volume to drive down costs, but you need lower costs to drive volume.
Which is exactly where government policy becomes crucial. And this is where we're seeing some serious commitments.
Canada's infrastructure bank invested $337 million in HTEC's H2 Gateway program.
California committed $115 million to build 111 new stations by 2027.
The U.S. Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocated $8 billion for regional clean hydrogen hubs.
The Inflation Reduction Act provides tax credits up to $3 per kilogram for clean hydrogen production. These aren't small bets.
And globally, $570 billion in direct investments for hydrogen projects have been announced through 2030.
Though only $39 billion, about 7%, have cleared the final investment decision stage.
That gap tells you something about the continued uncertainty in the market. Announcing investments is one thing. Actually writing the checks is another.
But here's where artificial intelligence is starting to play a really interesting role in solving some of these coordination challenges.
And this connects directly to what we do at AutoAgentic. You're listening to Auto Intelligence, brought to you by AutoAgentic,
the platform transforming automotive retail with intelligent, human-centered AI. How is AI helping tackle the hydrogen infrastructure puzzle?
It's fascinating, Steve. Companies are using machine learning models fed with traffic data, demographic information, and logistics routes to predict the optimal locations for hydrogen refueling stations.
Instead of guessing where to build infrastructure, they're using data to de-risk those multi-million-dollar investments.
That's exactly the kind of strategic thinking that separates successful infrastructure deployment from expensive mistakes.
AI can model scenarios, predict demand patterns, and optimize the entire supply chain from production to dispensing.
And it goes deeper than just location planning. AI is being used to optimize hydrogen production schedules based on renewable energy availability,
Predict maintenance needs for fuel cell systems, and even manage the complex logistics of hydrogen transport and storage.
At AutoAgentic, we see this kind of intelligent coordination as essential for any complex automotive ecosystem.
Whether it's hydrogen infrastructure or dealership operations, success comes from making smart, data-driven decisions rather than hoping for the best.
Now, back to today's topic, let's talk about the regional differences in hydrogen adoption.
Because the story varies dramatically depending on where you are in the world. Asia Pacific dominates with 73.72% of the global market share.
South Korea's hydrogen economy roadmap targets 6.2 million fuel cell vehicles by 2040.
Japan's Hydrogen Society roadmap aims for a fully hydrogen-powered economy by 2050. Those are ambitious targets.
But they're backed by serious infrastructure investment. Asia has 748 hydrogen refueling stations,
including 384 in China and 198 in South Korea.
Europe has 294 stations, with Germany leading at 113.
But even in Europe, the focus is shifting toward industrial applications rather than passenger cars.
And that might be the smart play. The passenger car market is increasingly dominated by battery electric vehicles.
Tesla's Elon Musk has been particularly vocal, calling fuel cells extremely silly and arguing that the best case hydrogen fuel cell doesn't win against the current case batteries.
Musk obviously has skin in the game, but his efficiency argument resonates with a lot of industry observers.
Mike Necrani, CEO of VEV, argues that battery electric was winning the race for passenger vehicles and questions hydrogen's viability even for trucks.
But you've also got strong supporters. Bill Elrick, executive director of the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Partnership, emphasizes that hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are no more a bomb than gas-powered vehicles,
and points to rigorous safety standards. The safety question is interesting because it highlights how perception can be as important as reality in technology adoption.
Hydrogen has this association with explosions, the Hindenburg rocket fuel, that battery electric vehicles don't carry.
Though statistically, hydrogen vehicles have an excellent safety record. The tanks are incredibly robust, and hydrogen dissipates quickly if there's a leak.
Unlike gasoline, which pools and creates fire hazards, let's talk about some real-world deployments.
Because beyond the statistics and projections, there are actual fleets running hydrogen vehicles today. What are they learning?
AC Transit in California has been running hydrogen buses for years. They've demonstrated that the technology works reliably.
But they've also learned about the complexities of hydrogen logistics. Sunline Transit has gone a step further with on-site hydrogen production,
which gives them more control over their fuel supply. Toyota's manufacturing plant in the UK has an on-site hydrogen station.
That's provided valuable lessons about integrating hydrogen infrastructure with industrial operations.
These aren't just pilot projects, they're operational systems that have to work day in and day out.
And in Wales, they're using green hydrogen for public transport as part of their decarbonization strategy.
Each of these deployments is contributing to our understanding of where hydrogen works best and where the challenges remain.
The pattern I'm seeing is that hydrogen succeeds in applications where you can control more variables.
Dedicated fleets, predictable routes, centralized refueling. The challenges multiply when you try to serve the general public with distributed infrastructure.
That's a crucial insight, and it suggests that hydrogen's path to mainstream adoption might be different from what early advocates envisioned.
Instead of replacing gasoline cars directly, hydrogen might establish itself in commercial applications first.
Which brings us to the big question, what should we expect over the next 5 years?
The industry projections are all over the map. Some analysts predict explosive growth, others see continued niche applications.
The global hydrogen vehicle market is projected to grow from $12.57 billion in 2024 to $142.15 billion by 2032.
That's a compound annual growth rate of 35.4%. Those are impressive numbers.
But they assume successful resolution of all the barriers we've discussed: infrastructure, costs, consumer acceptance, technology maturity.
A lot has to go right for those projections to materialize. And here's what I find most telling.
At a manufacturing scale of about 600,000 vehicles per year, the total cost of ownership per vehicle could fall by about 45%.
30 percentage points of that reduction comes from manufacturing scale up. So we're back to the volume question.
The technology can work, the economics can work, but only at scale. And getting to scale requires coordinated investment across the entire value chain.
Which is why government support remains so critical. The Inflation Reduction Act's hydrogen production tax credit of up to $3 per kilogram represents $91 per megawatt hour.
Based on hydrogen's energy content, that's far above typical wholesale electricity prices. Those are substantial subsidies.
And they highlight how much support hydrogen needs to compete with established alternatives.
The question is whether that support will continue long enough for the technology to achieve self-sustaining economics.
And there's the environmental consideration. Over 95% of hydrogen is currently produced using fossil fuels.
The climate benefits only materialize if production shifts to green hydrogen, which is still significantly more expensive.
But the trajectory is encouraging. Green hydrogen costs could fall below grey hydrogen by 2030 in major markets, including Brazil, China, India, Spain, and Sweden.
That would be a fundamental shift in the economics.
Instead of asking when they'll replace gasoline cars, should we be asking where they complement battery electric vehicles?
That's a really smart reframe, Claire. Maybe the future isn't hydrogen versus batteries, but hydrogen and batteries serving different applications based on their respective strengths.
Exactly. Battery electric for daily commuting, urban delivery, and applications where you can predict charging needs.
Hydrogen for long-haul trucking, industrial equipment, and situations where rapid refueling is essential.
And that might be a more realistic path to widespread adoption. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, hydrogen focuses on the applications where its advantages are most pronounced.
The next 5 years will be critical in determining whether that focused approach can establish viable market positions.
We need to see successful commercial deployments, continued cost reductions, and infrastructure expansion in targeted applications.
What should our listeners be watching for as indicators of hydrogen's progress?
First, commercial fleet deployments. If major logistics companies and transit agencies start adopting hydrogen vehicles at scale, that's a strong signal.
Second, infrastructure investment. Are private companies putting their own money into hydrogen stations, or is it all government funded?
Third, cost trends. Are we seeing actual reductions in hydrogen production and dispensing costs, not just projections?
And fourth, technology partnerships. When major automakers make serious commitments to hydrogen platforms, that indicates confidence in the technology's future.
And from an AI perspective, watch for intelligent infrastructure deployment.
Companies that use data and machine learning to optimize their hydrogen investments are more likely to succeed than those making decisions based on intuition.
The hydrogen story is far from over, but it's becoming clearer that success will require a more targeted, strategic approach than the early hydrogen economy visions suggested.
It's a reminder that transformative technologies rarely follow straight-line adoption curves.
There are always more obstacles, more complexity, and more coordination challenges than the initial enthusiasm suggests.
But that doesn't mean the technology is doomed. It means we need realistic expectations and smart deployment strategies.
Hydrogen vehicles represent both significant opportunity and substantial risk in the transition to clean transportation.
The companies and regions that figure out where hydrogen works best and focus their investments there will be the ones that benefit from this technology's eventual success.
And that's the key insight for our listeners. Whether you're in automotive manufacturing, fleet management, or infrastructure development, the hydrogen opportunity exists.
But it requires careful analysis of where the technology's advantages align with real-world needs.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into one of the most complex challenges in clean transportation.
The hydrogen vehicle industry is navigating a difficult path between ambitious potential and stubborn realities.
Success will require sustained investment, policy support, and technological advancement across the entire value chain.
But for applications where hydrogen's advantages are most pronounced, the next decade could see meaningful progress.
Thanks for joining us on Auto Intelligence. This episode was produced by the team at Auto Agentic. Learn more at autoagentic.ai.
We'd like to thank our producer, Barry Hillier, co-founder and CEO of Auto Agentic AI, whose vision for intelligent automotive solutions continues to drive our exploration of industry-transforming technologies.
If you'd like to reach out with suggestions for future topics or share your thoughts on today's discussion, email us at barry@autoagentic.ai.
Barry is always looking for exciting new companies, technologies, and people who are shaping the future of mobility.
Until next time, keep thinking ahead
and keep driving the future.